All right, that brings us to the main event for this UFC Houston card now, and it goes down between former middleweight champion Sean Strickland, who comes in at plus 235, and rising contender Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who comes in at minus 275. Now, Strickland is coming off of a loss, a title fight loss to Dricus du Plessis. That was a fight, again, a rematch. The first fight, Strickland was able to, or actually ended up losing his title to Dricus in a very close fight. I think it was a split decision loss. Pretty much came down to the last round, but du Plessis was able to just edge that one out. Strickland ended up bouncing back with a 5-round co-main event decision win over Paulo Costa, showcasing what Strickland is best at: walking opponents down, landing a barrage of shots, staying high with the output, showcasing good cardio, and just wearing opponents out that way. But then unfortunately, his last fight against Dricus du Plessis, not the best Strickland we've seen. We saw du Plessis actually have a much better performance against Strickland, pretty much beating him 4-1 on all scorecards. And we saw du Plessis get that win there to retain the title. But Strickland, a guy that you can never really count out, even at 34 years old, former welterweight, had a lot of success at middleweight, got him to a title shot, got him the title by pulling off that big upset against Israel Adesanya, but now he's seeming to struggle against, du Plessis, the main guy who's kind of had his number at 185 pounds. I think the other guy that beat him at 185 was Alex Pereira as well. I think Jared Cannonier just won a very close decision against him too. But Strickland's game is largely predicated on him establishing his pace and pressure, walking opponents down, working the body, utilizing a very weird striking defense game, but it works out pretty well for him. And that allows him to just walk guys down, land with pace and pressure, break guys down, utilize his cardio, weaponize his cardio as best as he can. And that often causes opponents a lot of issues. And his takedown defense has held up quite well. Guys have struggled to hold him down. Just for an example, Dricus du Plessis landed 6 takedowns in their first fight and was only able to accrue 2 minutes of control time over the 25 minutes they fought each other. The only guy to really have grappling success against Strickland was years and years ago when he took on Kamaru Usman, who was able to control him for the majority of that fight. I think he controlled him for 8 minutes or something like that. But since that, being at middleweight, it's been tough. That's obviously going to get challenged here as he takes on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who has been absolutely streaking as of late and is now on an 8-fight winning streak. He's, I believe, headlined his last 3 cards, the first of which was a mauling of Michel Pereira. Then he goes, he didn't headline the Brendan Allen fight. That was I think a co-main event or somewhere on a main card. He was able to outwork Brendan Allen. And then the last headlining fight that he had against Roman Dolidze, beat him from pillar to post, eventually submitting him. I think he submitted him with like a bulldog choke or even like a rear naked choke with no hooks in. He just beat the shit out of Roman Dolidze that night. But that's Hernandez's game. If you guys have been following me for the past several years, I think even back in 2020, I used to call Anthony Fluffy Hernandez the poor man's Cain Velasquez, a guy that wrestles and wrestles and wrestles, and he doesn't care whether his opponents work back to their feet, because it's almost harder for opponents to work back to their feet, to only get taken back down again, and then being forced to work back to their feet. And Fluffy did it perfectly, just like Velasquez would be able to do to the heavyweights back in the day. Hernandez can do that very effectively, and that's why we see him going out there and just dominating these guys. The issues that he's had in the past is his durability, specifically to the body, right? Marcus Perez was able to hurt him to the body and submit him, kind of club and subbing him there. The other loss, his last loss, came to Kevin Holland, who was able to hurt him to the body and eventually get a finish there too. Since then, Hernandez seems to have done a great job in terms of working on his core, working on his durability, eating big shots from guys like Edmund Shabazian, Roman Kopylov, and Michel Pereira, and still being able to push forward and apply his trade. And I think that is what is giving a lot of people confidence here, making him a big favorite against Sean Strickland. Now, the issue becomes, will it be the striking pace of Sean Strickland or the grappling pace of Anthony Hernandez? I would be very surprised if either guy ends up gassing out here. If one guy does, I think it might be Hernandez. if he's unable to establish dominant positions, or if he can't get that, the cage back ride that he loves to work on opponents, keeping them on their knees, pushing forward from that back position, if he can't keep Strickland there and Strickland can break off enough and continuously work forward, use some body work, maybe that's how he breaks Hernandez down and, either wins a decision or breaks him late and gets a TKO. But I'm believing in Hernandez's improvements, and I'm believing in his ability to find those positions to stay safe. And even if Strickland works out of those positions, I think it's going to take him longer than it has against prior opponents to do so. And I think that leads to Hernandez just getting those pockets of time of control, landing takedowns, threatening with submissions. I think both guys are going to struggle to finish the other. And I have to lean with Fluffy getting the win here. Would I take him at chalk against Strickland? Probably not. The spot that does intrigue me, though, is the over 4.5 around that -120 line. I think it's going to be hard for either guy to finish the other, and I think that leads to this fight hitting the scorecards, and it just comes down to whether Hernandez can hold Strickland and land enough damage, or Strickland getting away and landing his output. I think it's going to be the former. I think it's going to be Hernandez, grappling, control, submission attempts, decision win, and probably a shot at the title now. I'm going Anthony Fluffy Hernandez by decision.